Hello friends, it's Ms. Dwyer. So I'm here in my backyard in Harvard, Massachusetts, and for today's lesson we're going to be looking for signs of life in our yard or outdoor area in a very small space. Today we'll be looking at three microenvironments: a patch of ground, a rotting log, and under a rock. These are things that most people can find near their home. If you've been following my lessons, you may have seen that last week I went out and I looked for signs of life all around my yard. And I found some really interesting things. I wrote down what I found in my science notebook. And mainly what I found were things like tracks and scratch marks on trees, holes dug in the ground, things like that that were signs to me of other living things that are in this area, in addition to myself and my dogs and my husband. I've already realized that some of the things that I thought I was looking at were incorrect. So for example, my shed is right behind me there, and I found two peach pits outside of the stairs there. So I thought that that might be a possum, because I've seen possums in my backyard. But since then I have seen chipmunks and I've seen a groundhog going in and out from under my shed. So who knows? It's a very busy place down there. For today's lesson, we're going to be looking at a much smaller space. You don't need a big yard to find interesting signs of life. And actually, I'm going to challenge you to use a very small space to look for signs of life. So here's what you need for the lesson today. You need your science notebook or some other way of recording what you find. That could be pictures that you take, it could be drawings on piece of paper, whatever you prefer. You also, if you're using paper, you need a pencil. And I'm also using a stick today. Now I'm going to be using a stick because I'm looking at one of my garden beds in my garden. I'm looking at an area that's about 2 feet by 2 feet, or 2 square feet. I want to look on the surface, but I also want to look at what's above it and what's inside of it. In other words, what's underneath the surface, and that's why I need my stick, because I plan to do a little bit of digging today. So if you plan to dig in any part of your yard, please ask whoever cares for you for permission so that you don't dig up their flower beds or something that they'd rather you weren't digging. But I definitely encourage you to get permission and go ahead and dig in a place that's okay for you to dig, because you might find something interesting. You never know. Hi friends, so here is my little patch of ground in my garden bed, and I'm just gonna mark out a space that I think is around 2 feet by 2 feet using my stick. So I'm just estimating here, so I'm gonna go that far and draw a line there. And then I think that's about a foot and that's about a foot, and draw a line there. Okay, so I already put my heading in my science notebook to get ready. It says today's date, where I am, a little bit about the temperature and the weather. Let's see if you can see that. And also my question. So my question for today is, how many living things can I find in 2 square feet? And that's what I'm going to be exploring. So let's start. I already see several living things right on the surface. So I see this right here. I see this. This looks the same as this to me. This looks different. This looks different. And this here looks different. Oh, and this one looks different to me too. So I would say right now, just from looking in about 3 seconds, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things, maybe 6 different things just on the surface. So I'm going to go ahead and draw those in my science notebook to get started. So I'll just share with you what I drew so far, and these are pretty quick sketches. I drew my 5 different plants. Part of the reason why I draw instead of just taking pictures is because when I was drawing, 2 things. One, I noticed the differences between them. So at first I wasn't sure if this one was different from this one, but as I drew it, I noticed it was growing in a really different way, so that these leaves are opposite and these little leaves are opposite. Whereas in this one, it's like a 5-petaled flower, but it's leaves, it's green. So this convinced me that these were probably different plants. So that's part of why I draw, is because it helps me to really look closely. The other thing the other reason why I draw is because it also helps me come up with questions. And that's the other thing I'd like you to think about today. What questions do you have about what you find? So I noticed on this one that there's little teeth on the edges of all the leaves. It's the only one that has those little teeth. This one looks like it has kind of big teeth. So I'm wondering why. Why does the plant have those little teeth? Does it help the plant survive in some way or not? So I'm going to continue now to look for other things. I'm going to look really, really at the fine details now. So as I'm digging around, I'm kind of finding some interesting things about the plants too. So like this one I was curious about. So I already drew the top of it, but look at how long that root is. It's got all these little tiny roots coming off of it, but it's got this like super long root. It's, I would say, how many times? I think that's like at least twice as big, maybe 3 times as big as the plant itself. And I'm also looking through the roots to see if there's any friends in there, any little critters in there. I also found some other roots I was interested in. Yeah, this one's also got a super long root, and some roots that have like white stuff on them. So I was kind of curious about that. I might take that inside, some of these things inside, and take a closer look with my magnifying glass or my little microscope that I have. All right, so I got some stuff. So at first I thought that this was an earthworm. I found it near the roots of a plant. But now that I'm looking, I'm seeing a couple things. Maybe it is, but it looks like it's kind of like not quite the shape of an earthworm, but maybe it is. I can't see it too well. It's also moving very slowly. So at first I wasn't sure if it was alive. Oh, see, are there feet under there? I can't quite tell. But it's moving super, super slowly. Whoops, sorry, not in the frame. It's moving super, super slowly. So at first I wasn't sure if it was dead. But now I'm seeing it move. So I think oh yeah, there it goes. So it is indeed alive. It probably wants to go back to where it was. So I'm not gonna keep it out for very long. I also made sure that I washed my hands and didn't put anything special on my hands before I came out here today. So I'm not wearing any hand sanitizer, anything like that. Now, I have another question. Why is this earthworm moving so slowly, or whatever kind of creature it is? Here's another one in my hand, a little bit bigger, a little hard to see. It's good to keep dirt on them because that keeps their skin probably moist. I also found another one that's definitely different, but of course in the time it took to look at these ones, I think that one disappeared. So I'm gonna try and go find it again because it was different. It was definitely not an earthworm. Here's something else, not what I was looking for. See that little white guy? I don't know if you can see him. He's got little antennae, little tiny feet. Wow, that would be super fun to look at under a microscope. Here's something different. Let's see if you can see it. It's yellow. It's right there. That's definitely different from anything that I've found. Also moving a little bit slowly, I can see legs, at least on one side. Sorry, that might be blurry. I think the side near my thumb is probably the head side because that's where I see little tiny legs underneath, at least 4 on one side. Let's see if I can get a better look. All right, let's see. Can you see there? So at least 3 to 4 on each side. It looks like it's got some kind of little foot at the back and it's got stripes on it. I'm definitely gonna pause for a second and draw this one before I put it back into the ground again. Found the other one I was looking for. So right in here, not really moving. Not sure if it's some kind of like a grub or if it could even be like a cocoon. I think it's a grub now that I'm touching it. I think it's some kind of a grub. And actually, I think it's curling a little bit, but again, moving super, super slowly. Right now I'm just kind of sifting through what I've already dug up because I can find a lot of stuff just by looking through patches of dirt like this. So that's a good thing to do, especially if you see things like tree roots like this, or plant roots. These aren't tree roots, sorry. It's good to explore around those because plants and animals have relationships with each other. So if you find one, you often find the other. There's a good big fat one. again, moving pretty fast when in the soil. It didn't want me to dig it out, so it kind of was sticking itself back in. But as soon as I'm taking it out, it's really slowing down. So I think I'm going to put it back in pretty quick. Here we go. Cover that up. All right, so I'm going to cover that up. And I'm just putting the soil back where I found it. I'm sure there's lots more things in there, but I want to explore one more area today. So I thought I'd show you a couple more good places to look. You don't need a garden to do this. You just need a patch of dirt, preferably one that has some plants growing in it. Plants that are growing in things are a good sign that there's life there. Also, places that are covered with leaves, like dead old leaves, are also a good place to look. But there's more, so I'm going to show you a couple other spots that you could look around where you live. Another good place to look is under rotting logs, but you really want them good and dead. You want logs that have been sitting on the ground for a long time. So I just found one in my backyard that's been here for a while, so I'm going to flip it over and see what I can find underneath. And as soon as I flipped it, I already saw several things, so I'll show you those things in a second. So as soon as I flipped this log, I saw quite a few things. There's a red and black beetle right in the middle of my lens. There's also several, like a whole bunch of wormy, grubby looking things. It's a little hard for me to see them looking through the camera too, but you may see one like right in the center of the frame to the left of the beetle right now. There's one right there that's moving. Now I also see a lot of things moving on the log itself, so I'm gonna go over, and I just saw, where'd my little friend go? I just saw a oh, there it is. I just saw a spider moving across this log. So I think within 3 seconds, I've already found 3 or 4 things. I am curious what made that hole and what might be inside of it. There's lots of things on the log itself. So the more I look, the more I realize that I'm seeing lots of things. But you have to look really closely and take some time to see them. So the rotting log is definitely one of the best places to look, but the last place I'm going to recommend for today is under rocks, especially rocks that have been there for a long time. So I have a lot of rocks in my back area. I'm kind of in the woods right behind my house, and I'm just looking down and I see a big rock there. That one might be too big for me to roll over, but you want one that's been on the ground or kind of halfway in the ground for a long time. So I'm gonna give it a shot and see if I can roll that over and see if anything's underneath. Oh boys, there's some good stuff under here. I was a little slow with the camera, but can you see? Oh my goodness. There's another one right up here, a little different. But there are a whole bunch of friends right there. There's also a lot of beetles. There's a spider climbing on the rock. So these friends, I'm especially interested. I have not dug at all. I just flipped over the rock. Now, I'm going to very gently try to cover up my friends again. I do not want to squish them. But I also know it's quite chilly outside. So I would like to cover them back up again very gently. And I would love to spend a little bit more time on this rock. Sorry about my finger. There is a really pulley. There is another slithery thing. These ones are sort of in a little hole. One more look. I think that was a pretty good find. So I put this rock back as gently as I could, just to give you a size. That's how big this rock was. It was pretty much embedded in the ground, but it was easy for me to roll over. I did leave a little space. I didn't jam it back in there because there was a little hole where my living things were clustered around, but I really didn't want to squish anything. So I encouraged them to go into their little hole very gently, and then I put the rock back, but really, really gently, because those are delicate creatures and I don't want to squish them. Of course, while I'm out here, I'm noticing all kinds of other things, all kinds of holes. I found a big old hole under these hemlocks here. I think that's probably from my groundhog or something like that. But as soon as you start exploring, you quickly find other things to explore. So I hope that you will go out into the area around your house, no matter how big or small it is, and look for interesting things and signs of life that you want to explore, and figure out what questions you want to ask about those things. So that was really fun. I hope that you had fun exploring around your home where you live. It's time for me to go back inside my house and finish my science notebook. I got a good start when I was outside, but I have a lot more to add. So what I'm trying to do is, first of all, answer my question. My question that I started with is, how many living things can I find in 2 square feet? So that was in my garden bed, that little patch of dirt. So I've already recorded a whole lot of the things that I found, but I know that I have pictures in the video of more things. The faster moving things, I'll probably go into my house and draw from looking at the picture so I can get a little bit more detail, and I'll write down how many things I was able to find. In addition, the other really important thing is to come up with some questions that I want to investigate further, and a plan to do that. So I've already written down several questions that I want to look at more. One is, well, the main one I was interested in is, why are these things moving so slowly? So many of the things I found underground were moving very slowly, and I'm curious about why. So I've come up with a plan already, which I'll write down, which is I'd like to come back and look in that same patch of ground a little bit later, like maybe a week or 2 from now, and see if there's any difference, because that might tell me about what's happening in the habitat right now that's affecting how quickly or slowly things are moving. So that's one question. I had questions about the plants. Why do some of them have edges, like teeth along the edge of the leaves? For that, what I might do is compare. So maybe I'll go out and find other plants that also have those toothy edges, and see if I can try to figure out what purpose those might be serving, just by looking for more of them and more variety. Lastly, I have a lot of questions about what I found under the rotting log and under the rock. And so I'm going to write down some specific questions about those things as well. I was particularly interested in the group of animals that I found under the rock. I'd like to know a couple things. I'd like to know why they looked the way they did. So they were very shiny. They were also very slow moving. Although once I started to move things around in there, they did skedaddle a little bit. So I have a question about that. My last question is, why were they clustered together? Of all of the things I found today, they were the most keeping together in a group. So is there a reason why they were keeping together in a group like that? Again, I might use my strategy of comparing. So maybe I'll look around and find what things that are animals right now are clustered together in groups, and what things am I finding separately? And is that going to give me any clues about why that group of animals was all bunched together the way that they were under that rock? So I hope that you came up with some good observations and some great questions. I'd love for you to share anything you found with me. From now on in the Google Classroom, I will always put some kind of document in, just an empty blank one, as a way for you to share your work with me. So if you'd like to take a photograph of your science journal, you can take a photograph, save it to your Google Drive, and just cut and paste or copy and paste that link right into the blank document and hand it in to me through the Google Classroom. That way I'll be able to see what you're doing. Or maybe you'd like to take some movies, maybe you would like to actually draw using the Google tools in the Google document itself, and share that with me. So that'll just be a way for you to share whatever you're doing with me. And I encourage you to do so. It's super fun, and I will give you feedback on anything that you send to me. All right, so I hope you had a good day today. I hope you get outside and explore, and I'll see you next time.